Welcome to the Wellness for Women show, where we talk about life, weight loss and everything in between. I'm Faye Caseman, founder of the AAA Way Life and Weight Loss Programme, and I'm here to help you put together the pieces of life and weight loss for one last time. This is an episode of the Wellness for Women show, filmed live in the free Facebook group. Hello, and welcome to a special episode of the Wellness for Women show, where today I am joined by Susan Murray. It's a special guest, and we're going to find out all about Susan today. So Susan is a therapeutic coach, and she helps people to work through things like ME, cystic fibrosis. Well, is it cystic fibrosis? CFS? That's chronic fatigue syndrome, isn't it? Yeah. Fibromyalgia, autoimmune conditions, anxiety, and more recently, of course, the long COVID. Mm-hmm. And so she's going to tell us all about herself in a minute. So, yes, welcome, Susan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Susan and I have been in our being in each other's circles now for probably a good year and a half, maybe.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
We've been threatening to have this conversation, like most of my guests. It's been like we've been posting, commenting, exchanging messengers, but this is the first time that we're actually meeting virtual face to face. So again, it's just lovely to put a moving face to a name and an actual conversation. So tell everybody about you.
About me, well, I've been doing this since 2016, so helping people. I originally trained as a Mickel Therapist, and that's a specific type of therapy that helps people with these conditions. And I did that for about 4 years, but then I started adding tools to my kit. So I trained in things like Transformational life coaching, NLP, hypnotherapy. And as I was learning about these approaches, I started to see how they could actually come together with what I was already doing. And I don't think many people or anybody that I know of was doing that or really kind of thought to do that, because they're in two different camps. And they kind of kept themselves separate from each other. One's a lot about, the thinking brain and working with thought and all of that kind of stuff. And the other one's to do with more of the emotional brain. But you have to work together with these things. Both things are at play and involved. So if you can bring them together, then you have quite an effective approach. So I left Mickel, and that's what I did. I developed my own approach, bringing all of this stuff together, and I've been doing that since then.
And that's called the Mind Body Align approach, isn't it? Yeah. And I love that. And I think again from the little messages that we've had, again we're quite aligned in that sense, isn't it? I think that where we've kind of started on one track and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I like that, and then so we're adding this and we're adding that in. And so again, a bit like you, I've done the transformational life coaching. That's where I started, and I thought that's where it would end, kind of scenario. Whereas now I've got the belief coding, which works on the subconscious, and I'm very much more gone into sort of the holistic areas. So I think again we're quite aligned in that sense. Definitely. And so your clients obviously benefit from that combined approach, the same as what mine can ultimately as well.
Absolutely, because there's the two elements involved. The basic premise of this whole mind-body approach to these conditions and to physical conditions in general is that it's emotional issues. They are the root cause of it. So we've got our emotional brain as well as our thinking brain, and that is where emotions are generated first. So unlike a lot of kind of along the lines of CBT and kind of pure NLP and things like that, people say all of your thought comes from emotion, but in order to think about how you're feeling, you have to feel first. So that you felt it first, and then you think about why you're feeling like that. So emotions are generated in the body first, and then they're sent as messages to the thinking brain. So we have to learn to work with them together and to get them to be working together. So yeah, both elements are involved, and a lot of my clients have the physical manifestations, but also a lot of the thinking stuff going on. So a lot of overthinking and overanalyzing and all that sort of stuff. So bringing in these tools can help reduce that down, help them to kind of tune into the emotional brain and what's happening at that primary emotional level.
Yeah, and of course these things can all happen in the split of a second almost, isn't it? And it is just slowing down enough to do that. And when I first, and I don't think this is something that you'd necessarily know about me, but when I first started my weight loss journey, which is how I got into all of this, I scoffed with my accountability partners. I probably tell this story all the time, because part of it was run by a life coach, the program that I had, and it was about doing your thoughts and journaling and different things. And I was just like, I don't have any problem. You know, I was just like, I told myself for so long that I didn't have any problems. I'd gaslit myself so hard that I didn't think that I had problems. And so actually slowing down enough to hear my thoughts was a huge step, you know, and realizing that I actually kind of had them. Does that make sense? You know, I almost didn't know I had thoughts because they were just so automatic, isn't it? And so, let alone the fact of now and again, I'm starting to move a little bit more into sort of getting in touch with your body more. You're obviously way more advanced than me than that, but you know, so that's taking it to a different level again, isn't it? You know, different level of awareness.
Yeah, a lot of my clients don't. When I ask if they overthink, some people will say, "Oh, absolutely, they're aware that they're overthinking," but then other people don't, and they don't realise the range of overthinking that there is. They don't realise that, you know, maybe replaying a conversation that they've had later on, or trying to, you know, over preparing and over packing for holidays, or, you know, all these wee things that we're just used to doing. And you know, thinking is fine. It's recognizing when you're stepping over and into, I've been here before and I'm getting nowhere. You know, it's that kind of round and round and round. And that in itself is a symptom of not tuning into our primary emotions. So that's a symptom of it, but then it can feed back in and cause further symptoms as well. So tackling that's quite a big issue.
Yeah. And do you find as well, because obviously you're the kind of conditions that you will support people with, they will be people who are receiving treatment from elsewhere as well, obviously, I assume. And so therefore, how do you find the two go together, if that makes sense? Or
not much goes together in terms of traditional treatment with what I do. The thing is that there isn't much in the way of treatment for these conditions. What the only thing that's really offered is, if you go to your doctors, is that they'll tell you that there's no way to recover, which is rubbish, and that you're stuck with this for life, and that the best that you can hope for is to maybe take some cocktail of medication so that you can try and manage your symptoms, so to try and limit them. And all that's really doing is masking your symptoms further, when what you actually want to be doing is tuning into your symptoms and getting curious about them, because they are loud emotions. I said earlier about when our emotional brain sends messages to our thinking brain, sending the emotions so that we can think about it and go, oh, this is how I'm feeling. I'll do this. So if I'm not feeling good, something's wrong, I need to change something. Or this is how I'm feeling good, everything's good, I'll keep doing this, or I'll have more of this, please. But I lost my train of thought there. This is me so good at not overthinking now.
It's too chill.
So yeah, when we ignore that, our thinking brain will reject these messages, or try to distract us from them, because it's trying to protect us from these difficult emotions. When actually we're better off tuning in and dealing with these difficult emotions. So when we don't do that, the emotions will, it basically sends a danger signal to the brain, which puts us into fight or flight mode, which then can cause physical symptoms, because that's a biochemical stress response in the body. So that's the part that causes the physical symptoms if we ignore the emotional stuff for too long. So
it's all got to go somewhere, hasn't it, really? You know, I know in belief coding, and this is why I'm interested to have the conversation with you, so because I'm not sure whether it's the same, different kind of philosophies in it, or different, but it would talk about holding a trapped emotion, like sometimes you can hold it in your body. So again, we can work on pain as well in belief coding. And like I say, I'm only just touching the surface of this, whereas like say you live and breathe this potentially, but it's right, isn't it? You know, it's like if you've got tension, I've got pain in my neck right now, which probably is because I've been holding myself, some kind of tension somewhere. And again, you know it, don't you? And again, if you kind of like pretend to be angry, even, you can feel how that impacts your body. But yet we can go around, you know, whether it's a drive to work and you're really annoyed by the time you get there or something, it's all got to go somewhere, hasn't it? And if you don't if you don't even recognize it, because it's just part of the same old, and you just let the same old keep happening, then nothing changes as well, does it?
That's it, and that's why I think any kind of therapy or treatment or anything like that helps to shift emotional blocks in the body, whether it is physical kind of tension or the energetic kind of blockages and that sort of thing. I think it's all great, and I think it's really important. I have that done myself. I have Bowen therapy, so I know that stuff kind of gets stuck and needs a bit of a shift as well sometimes. But it's knowing, the really important part, I think, is, especially if you've got a chronic condition, is knowing what the emotional stuff is at the root cause. So knowing where that's come from, knowing how to deal with it, because that's the bit that really gives you control, and helps you to stop it happening again, to stop symptoms and then prevent them happening again. Because it is all the kind of patterns that we get into that just play out and play out and play out. And it's learning to kind of stop that stuff and make sometimes quite subtle changes, sometimes bigger changes. But until we stop the patterns, we're not going to stop the effect. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it always makes me, because obviously weight loss is my thing, and it's always interesting how there's always parallels with whatever we're doing, whether we're trying to build a business, whether we're trying to lose weight, looking to manage our chronic illnesses. It does all come down to, again, getting that awareness, really, isn't it? You know, if you don't gather that awareness, if you don't look to dig in a little bit and get curious, you'll never change anything. And again, I did this for like 40 years and I was surprised why I was on that hamster wheel of life, you know. And again, I had periods of severe anxiety. I had postnatal depression, all sorts of things like that, and I didn't have any of those. I didn't have any of these tools or skills, you know, and I've suffered from anxiety. I used to be somebody who used to do something at work, and then I'd wake up in the middle of the night replaying that conversation. And I'm so grateful that I don't do that anymore. It's so powerful, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the same. I had a lot a lot of those unhealthy patterns going on, and I suffer badly from anxiety and depression when I was younger, and I was on track to develop chronic illnesses. I had quite a lot of recurring infections and migraines and headache and all that sort of stuff. And I was kind of on that path, and I think I saw my mum on that path, and thought, well, I'm just not going down that road either. So yeah, and I was saying this to my members earlier. I had a group call on my membership earlier, and I was reminding them that I've been where they've been, so maybe not totally in terms of physical health, because they've got fibro and CFS and things like that. But I've been in that place of being crippled with anxiety, just not being happy, being depressed, not living the life that I wanted to live, and kind of feeling stuck, and being able to be where I am now and just kind of step into myself and be happy with myself. And that's really the key. That's really what we're aiming for here, isn't it? Is to go, we're okay. We don't have to mask. We don't have to hide under all this crap that we've kind of picked up along the way. We can be ourselves, and we're okay when we're our true selves. And that's where our inner confidence is. And when we can do that, then we are doing things like meeting our needs. We're not allowing unfair treatment. So we're dealing with these emotional issues that are the same for everyone at the time, and then we're not letting all the negativity build up. And that's the key.
And I think that's absolutely right. Again, I think no matter what you're working on, it is that inner. The most important thing is that inner situation. Whatever it is that you want to do, it's fine. And like I say, accepting yourself for who you are. Again, big part of that. Again, whether you're building a business, whether you're doing anything, because even building a business, getting comfortable with who you are, being visible, is a big part of. There's a lot of inner work that actually goes into setting up a business, turning up for your day job, parenting, all these, any life issue that we can come up with, isn't it? It all starts with that inner core work, really. But it's also something that, again, I just don't think we're taught, are we, at school?
No.
And not necessarily encouraged to build those muscles either, without getting too far into our childhoods or whatever, I guess. But it is sort of, it says we get caught up in the system a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go as far, and I often do go as far as saying that we're actually kind of conditioned to not know what our emotions are and how we're feeling, and to acknowledge them and deal with them and express them and communicate them. We are basically taught, whether it's a combination, it's normally a combination of our families, our communities, our school, as we go into the workplace. Society trains us to go, don't worry about it, don't think about that. Just shove that in your pot, in your emotional pot, I call it. Talk about emotional pot. Shove it in your pot, put the lid on, it's fine, just carry on, ignore it. So we get trained to ignore those emotions and the discomfort, and we live in a society where we're numbing all the time. We're numbing that stuff, whether it's through eating more food than we need, or drinking at the weekend, or smoking when we're stressed, and or drugs, or whatever it is, or shopping, or going to the gym too often, whatever it is. Watching 6 hours of soap operas a night, and and I'm not, I'm not judging anyone for doing these things, but when you're doing them and there's not much balance in there, and you're doing them in order to numb yourself, then there's maybe something to start, like you were saying earlier, get curious about.
I think I should have, again, through my stresses and anxieties over the years before I started my work, I'm pretty sure I deserve shares in Amazon and eBay. There's so much stuff that I bought over the years, because again, I'd numb through buying, eating, and crafting, which actually was not so bad a thing, except that under normal circumstances, except when you realise how much you spent on craft stuff. But I think that is kind of part of being a crafter.
That is part of being a crafter, yeah.
Yes. Well as messiness. But yeah, it is that thing, isn't it? And again, it's probably interesting to see the different effects through the generations as well. So again, we're probably generation where we were the kids that should be seen and not heard. and that kind of thing, isn't it? And again, there's those generational stories that can pass through, and I think things are again a little bit different now. I mean, certainly I wasn't, like with my daughter, it wasn't a case of you should be seen and not heard kind of thing. She's always had a voice, and obviously she benefits from this work as well, isn't it? So it's not necessarily just your members and my members that benefit from this inner work that we help people to do, is it? It certainly helped my daughter to get some tools in her toolbox, to carry forward as well.
It's definitely a ripple effect, and it's something that I say to my clients and members as well, particularly those who have kids and find it difficult to meet their own needs and to put themselves on an even level with the rest of their family, and to even set boundaries with them and things. And I kind of make the point that, so if you do this for yourself, then you're teaching them how to do it for themselves, rather than passing on this habit of having yourself at the bottom of your priority list, putting everybody else before yourself, not making yourself important enough. Words don't teach, but actions do, and we learn from what goes before. Not only that, but what people struggle with is thinking that being selfish is bad, because we have this negative connotation with it. And so they think, well, if it's a negative thing towards other people if I put myself first. But it's not. It's the best thing that you can do for them.
Yeah.
Because if you're putting yourself first and you're meeting your needs, you're making sure that you're at your best, which then increases your capacity to be there for other people and to help them and to be what they want or need, So
yeah, absolutely. And again, we see that all the time, isn't it? That people don't feel that they feel like they have to be there for everybody else and not for themselves. And again, I certainly would have been guilty of that. I think a lot of us have had over the years. And like you say, self-care is not selfish. I did actually have somebody comment. I think I'd posted something about self-care not being selfish, sort of the usual cliche saying, I guess. And they were adamant that it was selfish, and I just thought,
no.
It's really not. I mean, it's one of those where you obviously, if somebody's in a dire need, then of course you've got to put them first. But it is about balance as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's that. We found ourselves in this kind of either or society, haven't we? Where we think we can either be there for others, either do everything for others, or do things for ourselves, as if these things can't coexist. Because they can. People think that if you have boundaries, or you put yourself first, or you say no, that makes you somehow a bad person, or you're uncaring or selfish. in the negative sense. But no, you can be a good person and you can say no.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, when you're doing things out of obligation to someone, so you're doing things because you think you should, or it's the right thing to do, or you're just used to putting everybody else first, and you think that's the done thing, instead of being from a place of you genuinely have the capacity and want to, you're not doing it with integrity.
Yeah, and you'll feel out of alignment.
Going to have a negative effect on the other person. Because there is going to be that sense of obligation, there's going to be that resentment, there's going to be some kind of janky energy around doing something out of obligation, rather than putting into yourself first, making sure you're okay, and then being there for others with proper integrity. There's a whole different energy around it.
Yeah, and I think that will get felt as well by the other person eventually, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, again, with anything to do with the emotions, any of the burying in emotions, again, the analogy is always the balloon that's held underwater and it will pop. And I think it's the same if you're continually giving and not setting boundaries, that resentment will build and you will either pop or the situation will pop, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's something ends up having to give. It's just a question of time then sometimes if you're not careful.
Yeah, and especially with my clients who are quite often in a serious physical condition. You know, a lot of the approach that I use is based on Gabor Mate's work, and you know, his famous book on it is When the Body Says No. And it's true that if you don't say no for yourself, at some point your body will step in and say no for you. And that's what I have to remind my clients, because it's like, if you keep going, you know what's going to happen. You're going to absolutely crash. So if you don't say no, and you keep on, you will crash, and then you won't be able to do anything anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I've experienced that myself with my mum being ill. I've experienced that of her trying to push through and push through and push through, but then not be able to do anything, and it having the opposite effect of what she wanted. And I think we need to keep turning things around and looking at them from another perspective than from through the lens that we've been looking at it for all these years. So generally, I just say whatever we've been taught in society, we need to flip it. We need to turn it on its head.
Yeah.
Look at it differently, because it's not working for most of us.
Yeah, and again, it's just and it's the important, again, which I know will be the same for you, is appreciating each of our uniquenesses as well, isn't it? Because I think, again, you know, we're you know, like when we go through school, and again, there's so many of us going through school that, of course, again, there's got to be certain behaviours all standardised almost. And so again, we're sort of taught from this early age that we should all kind of almost think, feel and act the same. And we are all so uniquely different. And I know that your method will be tailored to the individual, or the individual can tailor it the same as what mine is. And I think that's so important. Because we are all so different, and one person's anxiety is not the same as another person's anxiety, or you know, one person's fibro doesn't show up the same as the other person's fibro. Their lives are different, their personalities are different, so therefore their the healing process they go through has got to be different as well. Tools can be the same, but the bits in between are kind of different.
Yeah, that's it. There's the similar but different. It's the same. They're the same issues, but they'll manifest differently. You know.
Yeah, or different degrees, or on different days, or in different triggers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so you've got your members circle. So what would a member expect if they were coming into your membership? What happens?
They will be welcomed into the most just the loveliest bunch of women. We're still quite small, because I've only opened the doors once in the last year since we launched, and I actually quite like it growing slowly and steadily, because the group of women in there gel so much. So my members have access to a whole membership area within my website, which has a load of content on it. So a lot of the materials and stuff that I use with my clients, my one-to-one clients, and videos and things like that. We have guest experts come in, like yourself and others, and we do extra workshops and things like that. But we have a fortnightly group call, which is really the bit that everybody kind of turns up for. Most of the members turn up as often as they can, and it's just that community. It's that knowing, like you were saying earlier, where all of this stuff kind of manifests differently for people, but they're the same issues. So it's boundary issues, it's unfair treatment issues, it's trying to meet your own needs, it's tackling overthinking. These are the things again and again and again. So hearing other people having these issues and going, oh wow, I'm not alone, it's not just me. It's just so helpful for them. It's great. They all mentioned on every call how helpful it's been, and just to get together and chat. And they all have such input and help each other out, and have, suggestions and things like that. But then I'll kind of be there with my approach in mind, and giving that little bit of coaching and guidance, and so that we can all kind of support. But it's great. And I've got my own social media platform in the membership area as well. So it's like they're very on Facebook, so they can go in there and ask questions and chat to each other and stuff as well. So and that's a year old. So I'm opening the doors. Hopefully a few new members will come and join us.
For sure.
And benefit from it.
Yeah, and I think I did go into Susan's membership. I did my Future You workshop, which I'm now unleashing on the general public as well. Susan's group was actually the first group that I ever did it to. So there you go. If you're in Susan's group, it was it was an honour to join in, and there was quite a few on the call, and it was evident that the community spirit was there.
Yeah,
and I think when you are going through when you are going through something, certainly like chronic illness, that kind of thing, but I mean any of the memberships, it is important to create that safe space and community, isn't it? And I think especially in our kind of niches, because of the sensitivity of the topics and everything like that, and for people to feel comfortable to be able to share and to reach out and get support, because again, not all of us are used to asking for support, are they? Again, it's only recent, again, since my journey, that I've worked really hard on unleashing perfectionism and the fear of sort of showing that I'm not perfect in some way, shape or form. And I think that can be a barrier sometimes as well, isn't it? Even just putting your hand up and just saying, actually, I am struggling is not necessarily always easy, is it?
It's not. It actually takes it takes a lot of strength to admit that you need help. It takes getting to that place of going, actually, I'm going to allow myself to appear vulnerable here and ask for help. It's actually one of the strongest things that you can do. So
yeah, it is. I was going to say something about that then. I've caught it. Yeah, that being vulnerable. There was definitely something in that for me along the way about not being comfortable to be vulnerable. Again, where it comes to thoughts and feelings, I did an episode on this a few weeks ago where, again, I buried my feelings. Like ever since I was a little girl, I pretended not to be scared about things, even when I was, like horror allergies or something. There might have been minor, but again, it was still just me from an early age bottling my feelings because I was worried about what people would think about me for having them. You know, or like anger is, you know, I'd be so embarrassed if I ever was angry or something like that, whereas actually, you know, they're all part of being human.
The emotions are there to keep us on the right track. We have to tune in. We have to be aware of them if we want to. If we want to be happy, if we want to live a fulfilling life, they're there for a reason. They're our internal guidance system, and they're okay. So negative emotions are just as good as positive emotions because they let us know something's not okay and we just need to adjust. Recalibrate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where I've finally got to now, is that, you know, actually they're just telling me something. It's very much there's an emotion, you know. Whereas before it would have been like a big drama just for having the emotion, and then again that can end up with a spiral, isn't it? You know, that overthinking spiral about the fact that you were having the emotion in the first place, even.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But yes, I can very much attest that going into Susan's group, even as a guest, it was very obvious that you were a lovely close bunch, which was
they're the best.
And everybody was so good. And like I say, the future you stuff is quite good to tap into something differently as well, and just sort of see different people coming into your membership and having different guests in, just experiencing different things as a group, isn't it? It's nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Fabulous. So thinking about wrapping up, because again, as usual, I could talk for the hind leg off a donkey. It is
I could talk about this stuff for days, so you better draw a line.
Yeah, and so it's 9:15 as we're going to finish off the recording. So is there any last things that you would like to say, Susan? Make sure sorry, Susan, putting into before you get a chance to even start. There will be details about Susan around the post wherever you are catching this, as well as myself. So do make sure that you reach out and connect in with Susan if you haven't already. But yes, over to you, Susan. Any last thoughts before I let you go?
I think I've said most of what I would say. I think. But yeah, just to say if you're out there and you have anxiety or these chronic conditions, have some hope, because there is a way to recover from them. Yes, you do have to be open to the mind-body connection. You do have to appreciate that there is a very real it's a very real cause, the emotions building up and then manifesting as physical symptoms and conditions. And when you can translate them back into the emotions and learn to deal with them in your current day-to-day life, then that stops the symptoms. There's no need for them to be produced anymore. That biochemical stress response, the fight or flight response, switches back off and everything comes back down, and you gain control again over how you're feeling, and you a happy product of that is being happier and feeling more fulfilled. And that's what I believe we're here to do. So
absolutely beautiful. Well, we'll end on that note. So we'll love you and leave you. Thank you ever so much for everybody watching live and on replay, and we'll see you about the socials soon. Bye. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, if you want to boost your life and weight loss the AAA way, check out the relevant links for today's show in the description. Speak soon.